Good day! My name is Jay, and for today I'm going to give you a quick demo for iAccs 2013. As you can see on my screen, we now have our iAccs 2013 system. So when we click on it, we'll be given with our login page where each user will be given a username and password. And upon logging in, here it is, our main page. So, nandito po ang ating mga iba't ibang module. Kasali na dito ang client profile, front office, back office, reports, payables, receivables, inventory, POS, settings, system, backup, and others. And on the right side, we have our logout button. We have the name of the one who is logging in and the system date. So, let's start with the client profile first. So let's start with searching a specific or a sample client. So when we open this one, we now have our client profile. Our system is already compliant to the CISA requirements, so there is nothing to worry about because it would now be easier for us to comply with the CISA requirements. So we have different tabs on this module. We have our personal information. We have our business and employment information. We have the educational tab where we can also input the educational requirements or attainments of our members. We also have our contact information and IDs, which is the main requirement for our CISA integration. We have the spouse information, the groupings if you want to have our clients or members group into specific groupings that we want. It may either be geographical or other groupings that we might want to integrate. We also have here the history and the closed options, the pledges and insurances, others, and also an add-on feature of the system. We can add on the sketch of our members for their address. So it will now be easier for us to manage our client with our client profile module. Also in our client profile module is where we can access our ledgers. So by just simply clicking F7, we will now see the accounts of our members. Makikita natin dito na meron tayong legend sa taas where ang color red is past due and the color orange is for delayed. By just looking at our subsidiary ledger, we would now be able to know the payment status of our members. So we also have here our deposits tab where there is our deposits for savings and for our share capitals. We also have here our other payables, which is basically our other payables ledger and our other subsidiary ledgers if it does not qualify to the first three ledgers classification. So for this receivables example, when we click into a specific loan account, it will show us the transaction history of this ledger. So let us say for example for this one, savings regular, we can now see the deposit receipts, the withdrawals, and the interest on savings for this specific member. And if we're going to click into the doc number, it will show us the entry of that specific amount. Once again, it is now easier for us to trace those transactions if ever there is a need for us to do that. Also, in this ledger module, we'll be able to access our statement of accounts or our interest and penalty worksheet or other reports that we want to access, as you can see in the screen right now. So let's try to open statement of accounts. So let's just put the cut-off date and the statement date and the option for statement of accounts and then click OK. And with just few clicks, we now have our statement of accounts. So this is our sample statement of account. So you might now be wondering on how to set up a specific ledger for the savings or share capital, or might be a specific ledger for a loan when our member applies for loan application. So let's start first with the savings or the share capital setup. So just by simply clicking Shift F8, we'll now be given options on as to what specific SL we're going to make. So let us select savings deposit, for example, and just click Control N, or just by simply clicking this new button here. You have to select the deposit type. So just say, for example, for this one, savings associate, and click on the date opened. And we can also input here the minimum balance for our savings deposit, and aside from that, we can also put holds for this specific SL if ever there is. So let's click on save, and voila, it's now saved. We have now created a new savings deposit account. So let's now proceed to the deposit on how this member will deposit his or her savings. So let us open the front office module. So here in our front office module, we have here the summary tab where the teller or the cashier can see his or her cash balance for the day. And to make that deposit, click on this receipt tab and click on new or Control N, and click on the deposit receipt, and then search the client by clicking F2 and enter the amount to be deposited for the savings account. Let's just say, for example, this member would deposit 5,000 pesos and put that amount and click enter, and search for that specific account number, F2, and we have to select this savings associate because that's the one that we have created earlier, and then input the amount, and then F11 or click save, and then also save, and click on the form for cash, and then input the amount, click save, and input the sample explanation. So our transaction has now been successfully posted. So the system prompts us to print the document. So the document here refers to the official receipt or the validation. So since our system is already compliant to the requirements that is being set by the BIR, so we can now print directly the receipts right from the system. So for this example, I will not be printing that one because we don't have the printer here. So I'll just be clicking cancel, and also it will prompt you to print the passbook. So passbook printing has also now become easier. So same thing, I will not just print this one because we don't have the passbook printer here. So let us check the deposit of that specific member. So let's go back to the client profile. Let's search that client once again, and just click F7 and click on the deposits, and we now have here our savings associate SL, which has the 5,000 deposit for that we have just did today. So to check also the entry, double click on the document number, and here is the entry. So it automatically debits the cash on hand from the cashier and credit to the specific SL of the member, which is the savings associate. Our transaction has now been posted. So let us move now to our loan application. So this is where things got more easier for us because, as what we have mentioned in the product presentation, iAccs stands for the Integrated Accounting System, which means our savings, deposits, and loans has now been integrated into a one system, so we don't need to log out and relog into other system because it is now put into a one iAccs 2013. As you have remembered, we just click on Shift F8 to set up the savings deposit earlier. Same thing we will do with the loan application or the loan profiling. Let's just click Shift F8 and select on the loan receivable. So as you have observed, the system has keyboard shortcut keys. We also have the manual buttons that can be accessed using our mouse. So that means our system is a really user-friendly system. because we have plenty of options on how to access the system. So let us proceed. Let's just click on the new. We have to select what loan is our member applying for. So let's just say regular loan. Click on the classification if it's new, renewal, or structured. And input the principal amount. So let's just say, for example, for this loan sample, 20,000 regular loan. And as you can see here on the parameters of this loan, this has now the preloaded parameters which will be set in advance so that it will now be easier for us to set up the loan application of our members. So let's just say, for example, this 20,000 loan is for 6 months sa may monthly basis on a straight line basis. And we also have other interest computation basis for diminishing, annuity, and straight line. So this will depend on the policy that we're going to adopt. So let's just say, for example, for this one, this is 18% per annum and 18% penalty. And also we have here our due date option, which is, we also have a lot of options to choose from. So for this example, I'll just be using 15 and end of each month. And we also have to click on the collection type, if it's field, via ATM, memorandum of agreement, OTC, or PDC. So let's just say, for example, via over the counter. And then we can also add the collateral here. And also we can also add the co-maker. So if there is no collateral, just select none. And we can also put on remarks on the others tab. And let's just try to save this loan account. So upon saving, we have an error message here, which is required field loan class must have a value. So with this one, we can now assure that the data that we are inputting in every loan application is complete because the system won't accept incomplete information upon setting up of our loan profile. So let's just try to save this one again. Let's just check if there are still fields that we need to fill in. So as you can see, we have another one. So let's just fill that one up. And let's just try to save again. So yeah, as long as you are not complete with the information, with all the fields that is required, then the system will always prompt you for that error message. And so we have already filled in all the required information, and now our loan application has now been saved. So upon saving, the system will provide you with the amortization schedule. So amortization schedule has now become easier for us because it is already integrated also in the system based on the parameters that we have set on the loan profile. So this is our sample amortization schedule. So we just have to print this one out. And now the question is, how are we going to process this loan? And as you can see here in our main page, we have the receivables module. So let's just click on that and click on the maintenance and then open the loan processing module. So find the client and click on new. And select the transaction type, which is, let's just say, for example, for this one, we have to make it for a cash voucher because to assume that this is on a cash release. So search on the loan profile that we have just made earlier here on the setup by just clicking once again F2. So click on this regular loan which has no posting. That means this is the new loan application. And then click on the subsidiary ledger in which we will be crediting the net proceeds for this loan. So here in the system, we have created a temporary subsidiary ledger for that one, which we call a vouchers payable under the miscellaneous liability. So let's just select on that and search on that vouchers payable and then click on the deductions. So here on the deductions, it is also now become easier because we just have to click on control enter for that one, and yes, the deductions has now been loaded based on our loan policy. So for this example, we have a deduction of of 400 pesos for the share capital, 300 pesos that will be deposited to his or her savings account. We have 400 service fee, we have a 200 pesos notarial fee, and 27 pesos for the insurance. And we also have this other tab. We also have the credit investigation report where we can input the report that is from our CI. So yes, it's just put on sample, and also we can input the recommendation. So let's just try to save this account. And yeah, loan application has now been added. You might be wondering, what's next for the loan application? So let's just process that loan once again, because that will be forwarded to the loans processor, to the supervisor, or to the manager for verification and approval. So let's just do that also here in the system. Find that loan application and select the new status and click OK. So we have here the loan application for that sample member that we have just created. Click on it, and the verification is just a click away, and also with the approval. So you have seen here, meron po tayo ditong verify na button and approve button. So yung gagawin lang po ng ating supervisor or ng ating manager is just click on this button. Click on verify, and yes, the loan has been verified. And if it's approved, click on the approve. So the loan application has been approved. And to proceed with this loan application process, this will now be forwarded to the bookkeeper or the accounting for journalizing the loan. So journalizing also is now integrated into the system, which the system will now be the one to make that journal entries. So the bookkeeper or the accountant will just click on the journalize button, and then OK, and then click on the view button to view the entries for that specific loan. So as you can see, we have here our entries. So debit to regular loan principal, and credit the reductions that we have just set earlier, and credited to the vouchers payable, which is our loan proceeds of around 18,673. So they just post this one so that this loan will now be released. So click on the document and click post. And the loan has now been posted. So for the releasing of this loan, once again, we go back to front office. And to release on that loan, let's go back to the front office module and click on the disburse. So once again, click new, search on that client, and enter the amount to be disbursed, which is 18,673 for this loan release. Search on that vouchers payable, which is under miscellaneous liability, and the account number for that one. So let's just input the 18,673 and then click save. Save again and enter the explanation. Click on save once again, and that loan has now been released. So once again, we can now print the document or the validation for this transaction, and let's just check that loan application if it has now been reflected on the member's ledger. So go back again to the client profile and then search that number once again and click on F7 to load the subsidiary ledger. And we now have here our 20,000 regular loan, which we have just created right now. And click on the document. And this is the entry for that loan. And I forgot to show you earlier the voucher, the sample voucher for this one. So let's just generate that one. So by the way, the voucher is also integrated in the system. So we just have to generate on it. We now have here, as you can see on the screen, the voucher number, the client information, and if this is on a check releasing, we have the check details over here, and the description of this specific voucher, and also the entries for that loan application that just happened or that approved loan. And we also have here the received by, so that the member can acknowledge the receipt of that specific 18,673 net proceeds. So we are now done with our loan application and on the savings account. Since iAccs 2013 is an integrated system, our deposits, loans, and receivables modules are linked directly to our core accounting system. That means all the entries made in our deposits module and loans and receivables modules are recorded directly into our core accounting system. It has now been updated in our general ledger accounts. So to check, let us generate the report here in the reports module. And we have here our data masters, which contains all the subsidiary ledger details. And for our general ledger accounts, we have here our financial statements. We have here our balance sheet, income statement, trial balance, cash flow, and other reports that we need for our operation. So let's try to generate our balance sheet. By default, we have two reports format, which are all comparative. We have this month compared to last month, this month, and compared to same month last year. So let's try to generate a report. Click OK, and this is our sample balance sheet or our statement of financial condition. And as you can see, we have here our variance versus assets and liabilities and equities. So that means it is now easier for us to check on our general ledger details. And also, since our system is an integrated system, our subsidiary ledger and general ledger accounts are linked together, so that is why variance for SL and GL can now be eliminated. So let's also try to generate our income statement. Same with our balance sheet. We also have our two default report format, which is same this month and compared to last month, this month and compared to the year-to-date this month and year-to-date of same month last year. So let's start to generate. So this is our sample statement of operations or our income statement. And as you can see at the bottom, we have here our net surplus, which has our accumulated net surplus over here and our net surplus for this month and compared to last month. So we have here a decrease of our income for the period. So it is also helpful for us in making decisions. So those are our sample reports. And if you have questions with you, please reserve that for the question and answer right after this video. And once again, I am JR, and thank you so much for listening and watching into this short demo that we had. Thank you, and our marketing team will now be accepting your questions.